class. Again, my name is Jonathan Smith, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about why I decided to take the Comm200 course. Have you ever got up to speaking to a group of individuals, maybe just talking with your friends, or maybe just talking to your family, or maybe it was just one of the fellow employees at your job, and what you talked to them about never came across the way you meant it? Well, that's happened to me plenty of times. And that's why I'm here to tell you how I decided to take the Comm200 course. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go over 3 topics. I'm going to go over the history of my public speaking. I'm going to go over the ways I measured that public speaking. And then I'm going to finally tell you how I decided to improve myself and take this Comm200 course. So with that, let's go over a little bit about my history of public speaking. My history of public speaking began with the Air Force. And in the Air Force, we kind of get thrust into some things. I kind of got thrust into some things because when I came online, they were starting to talk about this total quality management process. And what total quality management process for the Air Force was gathering data and basically putting it on a PowerPoint presentation that we would present to leadership. Well, I got assigned to one of those process teams that looked into Air Force processes. I started looking into those processes, gathering data, and putting on PowerPoint presentations. Well, they decided that I could get up and translate those PowerPoint presentations to the leadership. So I started getting up and speaking to the leadership in our unit and translating those PowerPoint presentations. And it got to be where it was repetitive. I'd have to do that once a week. But before I could get up and speak to our unit leadership, I also had to start talking to my supervisor first and kind of doing practice drills with my supervisor, and then I would get up and speak to the squadron leadership. Well, after a while speaking to my squadron leadership, they decided I should speak to the group leadership. Then I needed to speak to the higher and the wing lead and the base leadership. So then I started talking to the base leadership about all the processes across the base and which ones needed improvement and which ones were good and which ones were bad. So I kind of got thrust into it. So then the Air Force decided that, guess what, I could take some classes on public speaking through their professional development. So they started giving me some professional development courses, and I started learning some of the terms for public speaking. And then they decided that, guess what, you can go out and start teaching some of the youngers how to gather this data, how to put them on PowerPoint presentations, and then how they can present them to their supervision and then present them to us as well. So I started teaching some of the younger airmen up and coming on how to do this total quality management process. So that's kind of like how I first started out with public speaking. As my career went along, I started to get more and more involved with what the Air Force wanted me to do, and they decided that I should start volunteering. So I started volunteering in the local community as they wanted me to, and I kind of grew as far as going to a local church and doing that outlet as my volunteer work. And I started getting more and more involved with this church and decided to start teaching some of their Sunday school lessons and start helping adults with their spiritual development. And then I started teaching kids so that they could also develop themselves spiritually. So I've had quite a little bit of experience in public speaking, but you know, when it comes down to it, there's always that measurement tool. And one of the ways that you can always be measured is by the audience's initial reaction. If the initial reaction is a hand clap and there's a hoop and holler, then obviously you did pretty good at your public speaking. If there's the puzzled look, or what was he saying, or you sat down and someone got up and clarified what you had to say, then possibly what your public speaking event at that point was really probably not that good. The next way I realized that I would measure myself is by my personal evaluation. Now, personal evaluations can be hard. You can get real hard on yourself and think, man, I'm not doing things the way I should be doing them. And you self-evaluate and you criticize yourself so harshly that maybe you don't want to get up and do public speaking again. Well, I can get that kind of negativity on myself. But I can also realize that some of those things that I talked about with myself were things that I needed to do better. The word try to cut that out. Try to make sure that I'm not trying to persuade somebody when I'm trying to inform somebody. Try to what makes an informative speech, what makes a persuasive speech, what makes an entertaining speech. Don't use entertainment when the event is to be more of a persuasive event, or don't use entertainment when you're trying to inform somebody and they need information versus they need entertainment. So, or when to mix it all up. And I needed a few of those key, what it was that makes those types of speeches and what you're supposed to do with those types of speeches. I needed that. So I set up, all of these measurement tools. The audience, would sometimes come up again and they would say, hey, you did a good job. So that bolstered me up and I thought, man, I'm doing good. And then my personal evaluation, of course, would always kind of tip that. So how could I improve myself? So I sat, around thinking about it, and I thought, maybe what I could do is just skip trying to take any kind of speech class, and maybe I could just let the Air Force keep thrusting me into, public speaking events so that I would eventually get better. Maybe I could gather all the certificates up and turn them in and get a credit for speech and really not worry about it, because again, the Air Force can thrust you into things and you can get better that way. The second thing I thought about ways to improve and get a higher measurement was to basically take one of the college level examination program tests, which we call CLEP. And that would be a refresher. I could just go over some of the things that the Air Force had given me, some of those tools that they had given me, and some of those definitions, and just rehash them and think, yeah, there you go. Then maybe I could just remember that and reuse it for later in my later public speaking events. And then the last thing I thought was, why don't I look around and take a real public speaking class? But should I take one that's online, or should I just take one at my local base? Well, I could take one at my local base, and I could sit out in front of the class, and I could give speeches and do it that way, or I could, maybe participate online. It was back and forth, back and forth. What I decided to do was I decided that, I've been taking classes through American University, and why quit now? I decided that, I'd seen other people take these online public speaking courses, and it looked like they were doing just fine by uploading video and then sending it down to classmates and letting them evaluate their speeches. It was coming across just the same way as you would if you were sitting in front of a classroom, although you couldn't get the audience's initial feed. One of the girls told me the best thing to do is maybe talk in front of somebody and also talk in front of the class, and that would help you get an initial feed of what you were doing right and what you were doing wrong. So I thought, I can do this. I can take this online Comm200 class, and I could get some of those tools that I really need to improve, such as what makes up an informative speech, what makes up a persuasive speech, what makes up an entertainment speech, and when those things are appropriate to use and when they're not. I needed that. I needed those definitions. I needed those tools of information so that I can improve myself and maybe feel a little more confident, when I go out and do public speaking and pick the right speeches basically for the situation that's involved. Because I can tell you that, I would criticize myself again, and it was all because I wasn't probably picking the right speech for the right situation, or I wasn't just doing something right. And I felt that I needed that improvement tool. So overall, I've told you that, in speaking in a group of people, my point sometimes never got across, and it really bothered me, and I really needed that improvement. Although I've had a lot of public speaking experience, and historically I've done a lot of public speaking, I needed a way to make, the measurement of that improve. So that is why I decided to take the Comm200 class. And I hope that all of you, as my fellow classmates, can help me, improve my public speaking. And I'm also hoping that this Comm200 class gives me more tools to improve my public speaking. Again, I thank you guys for your time and your tuning in to listening to me. And good luck to all of you in this class. And thanks again.